lobby waiting, Therese. Should I let him in?
Okay.
Ready?
Yep. He got the snowplow events up.
We'll
ready.
call the May 12th, 2020 County Board meeting to order. First order of business is pledge allegiance to the flag and a moment of silence, if you'd please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
is now joining.
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next order of business on the county board agenda is number 2. It's open forum. This is the part of the meeting that the public can either submit a letter or we are still closed, so they're not here. Is there anybody, county administrator, is there any letters or anybody that wants to speak at open forum?
Mr. Chairman, I've received none.
Okay, that takes care of open forum. Next, number 3 on the county board agenda is review and approval of the April 28th, 2020 regular county board meeting minutes. Any additions or corrections, or if not, I'll accept a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Barrows, seconded by Commissioner Franzine. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is passed. Review and approval of today's agenda. Any additions or corrections, Mr. Hool? None.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Franzine,
I'll second.
seconded by Commissioner Brecken. All in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Number 5 on the county board's agenda is consent agenda. Looks like a lot of items on there. Any questions from the county board?
Yes.
Commissioner Franzine.
5.10. Gary? The public land survey corner remonumentation contract, why didn't we take the lowest bid?
I'm sorry, I could not hear you, Commissioner Franzine.
Okay, 5.10, public land survey corner remonumentation contract, why didn't we take the lowest bid?
Number one reason is we've had really great results with KLD in past years, and we felt that it'd be more effective and efficient sticking with them.
Have we ever worked with the company who had the low bid?
We have not directly worked with Arrow, no.
Okay, thank you.
And so legally, we can go, we don't have to go with the lowest bid. You might want to explain that, Mr. Hool.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is a professional services contract, and so we do not need to go with the low quotes on this particular item. If you think about it, you can hire your attorney based on the qualifications, based on your experience with them. And so with professional services, it's much more frequent that we would not accept the low bid in favor of qualifications that we believe to be superior.
So is it actually a bid? Because I believe there's a difference between a bid and a quote. Is it an actual bid or is it a quote?
Mr. Chairman, it is a quote.
Okay. Any other questions on the consent agenda from the county board? Chair would accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Barrows,
I'll second.
seconded by Commissioner Brecken to approve the consent agenda. All in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Number 6 on the county board's agenda.
Unknown participant is now joining.
Number 6 on the county board's agenda is schedule Second Amendment Sanctuary County public comment period. And I believe that Commissioner Barrows would be speaking on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been receiving additional comments from people. The lag of time, I think, has caused some people to start to want to address this issue. And so I think for expediency purposes, that it's time for us to initiate a public comment period. So my motion is to begin a public comment period Monday, May 18th, run for 30 days with a 200-word limit per person. And that way we will be able to gather information that for all of us to look at that is consistent for each one of us to determine what our position may be or may not be on that particular issue. So I think it's gathering some good information that everybody can see so that there is a public document that the public has to review why we got to the decision we did.
And to begin, Commissioner Barrows, to begin when?
May 18th, that's next Monday.
18th. Any comments from the county board on this, to schedule a Second Amendment sanctuary? Actually, it's not sanctuary, it's dedicated.
Yeah, it's not sanctuary at all.
It's dedicated county for a public comment period. You know, I have no issue with it one way or the other, but I have been thinking about this because you did call me and said that you wanted to do this. I said, I don't see anything wrong with it at all, to hear the comments. But at the end of the day, we're elected, all 5 of us are elected to make decisions on behalf of the citizens of Crow Wing County. And it seems like lately we do a lot of public comment. This is just my thoughts. We do a lot of public
Unknown
comment.
participant is now exiting.
We do a lot of public comment, and it almost seems like we're going, gee, I wonder which way the wind is blowing. No, I don't think that's why people have elected me, to see which way the wind is blowing. I'm not saying, Commissioner Barrows, that that's what I'm just saying that if that's the reason why we're using this tool, I kind of question that. Because ultimately, with or without public comment, we are supposed to make the decisions here. You know, Mr. Hool, a question for you. So what different things, county business-wise, are we required to have a public comment or a public hearing for?
Mr. Chairman, members, it's a broad array of things, but I would say typically it's going to be for the adoption of ordinances. Fee schedules are required public hearings.
By state statute?
Yes.
Okay.
The adoption of the budget and levy requires a public hearing, and so I would say that the requirements are peppered throughout statutes. There's a fair number of things where we're required to do so.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
if I may, too.
Commissioner Brecken.
I believe that when we had that open forum, was it almost 2 months ago now, I believe?
Seems like it.
Yeah, it seems like it. I think at that time, we had also, from that, said that we would conduct a comment period and/or another open forum. And obviously, since we've had the COVID-19, we haven't been able to have that. So at least this is another way to be able to get public comment out there so that we're trying to be fair to both sides of the issue.
And if you remember, I did set that public hearing where I wanted to hear from both sides and then take a vote after that. And because of this stuff going on, we had to cancel it. So I think this is probably a good idea because for the most part, we probably heard from people that are in favor of it. There wasn't a lot of people that have their opposing views to it. So this is probably a good idea. I think we might want to, after this, I don't know when this thing is going to be over with, but I think we should maybe think about a public hearing for that. This is an important deal. This is, we're talking about the Constitution, so this is something that I think is really important. Anyway, Commissioner Franzine?
I have a whole list of things where you need to hold a public hearing. I already asked that question before.
Okay.
You're required to hold a public hearing whenever you adopt an ordinance, when you hold a truth and taxation meeting, when you adopt the final budget and levy, when you change a fee schedule, when you approve the stand exam plan, when you approve rerouting a designated county forest road or established a cartway, when you issue a conditional use permit or land use variance, when you approve a lake improvement district or rename a body of water, or for reclassification and sale of tax forfeited lands. This actually, the Second Amendment dedicated resolution does not require any of that.
Thank you for that. I would like to have a motion on setting the...
Mr. Chair, if
yes.
I might, I already made a motion.
Oh, you did?
I made the motion to set it for May 18th, 200-word limit.
Okay,
Give your
well then-
name and your city that you live in.
The chair is not handling the meeting correctly then, because if I would have known that was a motion, I would have asked for a second. So if you could reiterate your motion, that would be great, and then I will ask for a second. I apologize
Very
for
good.
that.
So my motion is to have a 30-day public comment period beginning on May 18th with a 200-word limit. Each person will be required to give their name and the city that they reside in.
County Board has heard the amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hoag. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Next, we're on number 7 on the County Board's agenda, Land Services, which looks like we've got a whole list of things. Are we taking these one at a time? Okay, and then Gary, if you can hear us, we're going to start out with, I guess we'll start out with 7.1. It's a land use map amendment, M80 LLC, Donnie Berg. Gary Griffin.
Thank you. Yep, thank you, Chair. Just to set the stage, if I can, we're going to have Jake take you through the 3 planning and zoning issues today, and then when we're done with that and you're ready, we'll have Sam take you through the penalty waivers. I'll be here in case you have other questions. We're sharing a laptop, so we'll just bop back and forth if we need to as we present to you. Hopefully you can hear us well. I can just tell you, if you have questions for us, if you could speak directly into those mics. We are having a little bit of problems hearing some of you if you're not close to your microphone. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chair and members of the board, the first item for land services here is a request by the county board to approve, table, or deny an amendment to the official land use map for the applicant of M80 LLC, Donnie Berg, for the property located at 6163 Pine Beach Road, Brainerd, Minnesota. Change from Commercial District 1 to Commercial Light Industrial District involving approximately 6.5 total acres. And since I'm not seeing right now the screen that you have, I'll just kind of go over a little bit on the zoning map on this one, just for folks' awareness. So if we have what I would call the colorful zoning map in front of us, I can go through that a little bit, the one that's zoomed out a little bit further. This property is located on Pine Beach Road, just off of State Highway 371 and First Assessment. The zoning right now, of course, is Commercial District 1. Again, proposal to go to light industrial. The surrounding zoning to the east, it is zoned, actually that's the city of Baxter, and that zoning is commercial light and commercial industrial, a little bit different type of zoning, but similar. There is some industrial commercial uses to the east. On the west side and south, it is rural residential 2.5. On the north side of Pine Beach Road, rural residential 2.5 and kitty corner to the northeast. On the other side of the road, it is Commercial District 1. Just a little bit of summary information and past history on this one. This was heard at the April 23rd Planning Commission meeting. It was unanimously recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. It's an unorganized, so obviously we had no township comments. We got a comment from the Highway Department with no concerns. We did get a comment from MnDOT stating they had no concerns. We did not have any other public comments received at all. And of course, since our Planning Commission doesn't, oh, go ahead. Oh, all right,
Someone
thought I
have a
heard something
question?
there.
Go ahead, Jake.
Oh, my mistake. No other public comments were received, and of course, because our Planning Commission is held without comment at the meeting at this time, obviously, we didn't have any public hearing where there were comments at the meeting. So with that, I'll take any questions. Otherwise, the motion is on the table at this point.
So I guess the question is, I think back to the Rudolph property, and we're changing the zoning here on Pine Beach Road, correct?
It's already commercial.
Okay. So what is the difference between commercial and light industrial? Why do they want that changed anyway?
So, Mr. Chair, I think if I heard you correct, the question was, what is the difference between commercial zoning and light industrial? What sort of change in use? Does that sound about right?
That's correct, and why do they want to change it?
So in this particular case, the applicant would like to do some commercial welding, and that fits based on the scope and the scale of what they would like to do on this property. That does fit well within the realm of light industrial and wouldn't be an allowed use in commercial district as currently where it sits. So because of the welding and that type of use of sort of that manufacturing, light manufacturing, things like that, that's what changes this use over into industrial.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve or disapprove the land use map amendment M80 LLC Donnie Berg?
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Franzine makes the motion to approve,
Second?
seconded by Commissioner Barrows. Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. 7.2 is the land use map amendment Pelican Place LLC. Mike, is it Schwartz?
Schwarzy.
Schwarzy? Jake, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board.
Gary.
Next item up here is request or seeking a motion to approve, table, or deny an amendment to the official land use map for Pelican Place LLC, Mike Schwarzy, for the property located at 6052 Pine Beach Road, Brainerd, Minnesota. The request is to change the zoning from rural residential 2.5 to commercial district 1, involving approximately 6.29 total acres. What I'm going to do again is refer to the colorful zoning map, probably the zoomed out one if we could, probably the second page. So this is, not surprisingly, this is also on Pine Beach Road. And if you recall, the previous request was that we just approved. That was just to the southeast, on the south side of Pine Beach Road, sort of Kinney Quarter to the southeast. So now we're in that red outline parcel to the northwest of the previous one. It's currently zoned rural residential 2.5. All of the surrounding zoning adjacent to that parcel is rural residential 2.5. We do have commercial 1 to the west, as you can see. And further to the east is commercial 1, same Pine Beach Road, just west of State Highway 371. The proposal in this case is for landscaping, tree, sort of that Mike's Tree Company business, potential expansion. They do own property to the west as well. Just some history on this one as far as previous recommendations. On April 23rd, this was recommended unanimously by our planning commission for approval. And it's an unorganized, so no township comments. We received comments from both the county highway department and MnDOT with no concerns. We also on this one did not receive any other public comments. And of course, because the planning commission meeting doesn't involve public comments at the meeting, we had no additional comments there. So with that, I'll take any questions. Otherwise, the motion is there.
Jake, I guess this is Paul Coring. I guess I'm kind of puzzled why just a few months ago it wasn't okay to change some property to commercial, but now here we've got two that we're changing. What's the thinking of the planning commissioner? I guess it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I hate to speak for them in this case, but I will just tell you that they typically do always try to do a good job to look at each property and situation independently of another situation. I will say that in this case, these properties are further to the east on Pine Beach Road versus the Rudolph property is further to the west. I know in speaking with the Board of Adjustment Planning Commission, informally through our scoping process of potentially changing the zoning on Pine Beach Road, they really had an emphasis of potentially changing the zoning on the east side of Pine Beach Road versus the west. So it seems that there is some preference or understanding that the further west you go along that road, there is some more residential uses that they're concerned about. That would be just my take, that more on the east side, there's a clear existing zoning that you can point to and look at. That would be my take, Mr. Chair.
Doesn't seem very fair to me, but
These are already used as businesses and have been for many, many years. One is Mike's
right, but so is
landscaping.
Rudolph, has been an existing business, I think.
Not for the amount of years, and it is further towards the east. It's towards Donlinger's, and the other one was
Well, I'm just
down in
expressing my opinion, and I
downside.
just don't know that it seems kind of fair to me, but anyway, any other comments from the county board? Is there a motion to approve or disapprove the land use map amendment on Pelican Place LLC? How do you pronounce that again, Rosemary?
Swarzy.
Swarzy.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Franzine,
I'll second.
seconded by Commissioner Brecken. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion is passed. Now, Therese, do you need to call up Paul Herkenoff?
I do.
Okay. As soon as we get Paul Herkenoff on the phone, Jake, then we'll go to 7.3, preliminary plat of Lakeview Condo Storage, Mike Anderson.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair and
No,
members of the
Jake,
board.
gotta wait.
Jake,
Participant is now joining.
Oh, I'm sorry.
can you wait 1 second?
Absolutely.
Paul, are you there?
I wonder if he's muted.
Well, it appears he's on the screen. It looks like he's muted.
Oh, okay.
So I think you can go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, again, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. This third item is a request to approve a preliminary plat, Lakeview Condo Storage. The applicant, of course, is a Mike Anderson. And it's for the property located in part of Government Lot 7, Section 10, Township 134, Range 29, in unorganized first assessment. The request is, again, Lakeview Condo Storage plat consisting of 44 total lots, with lots 1 through 10 in the Shoreland District, is a common interest community plat and includes dwelling units. So it's a residential development. And lots 1 through 34 are proposed non-residential lots to be used for individual commercial storage units only and located in commercial 2 zone portion of the property. So at this point, again, not looking at the same screen everybody else is, but maybe Therese, what I'd like to look at is the colorful zoning map that is more zoomed out, where we have a blue highlight around a red looking parcel showing North Long Lake and the surrounding area. So as we look at that, again, it's about 17.5 acres. As you can see, the parcel as it sits on that map has since been split, and the zoning has been changed at a previous county board meeting. The southern half of that parcel is now Shoreland District, and the northeastern half of that parcel is now Commercial 2. The entire parcel was waterfront commercial. That set the stage for what this proposal is right now. And I'm going to go through that in a minute. But as you can see, the zoning to the north is, it appears to be that waterfront commercial. Zoning to the west, Shoreland District. To the south and east, Commercial District 2, near Mulberg Lake, which is a recreation development lake to the south. Love Lake to the northwest, and of course, North Long Lake, a very familiar lake for folks, to the east. Access is off State Highway 371 onto a frontage road, which is Soder Road, and there is an existing access that they propose to use. The next map I'd like to go to is the survey, or the plat survey, if we could. And again, since I'm not looking at the same screen, it's the one with all the rectangles on it, obviously, with the numbers on it. So let's dive into that a little bit. So what you can see here, let's start on the east side, adjacent to State Highway 371. There's your 34 posted stamp lots that'll be commercial storage units only. Won't be residential units, just commercial storage. But in this case, since the developer would like to sell those individual storage units, they're turning this into a plat with access to each one of those storage units. So then you can see there's a lot line to the west separating that Shoreland District parcel. So once we go to the west, we're going to have those 10 lots in the Shoreland District on Mulberg Lake. They all meeting the setbacks to the ordinary high water mark of 100 feet, all meeting the tier density standards. Those 10 lots will be residential developments. There will probably likely be some storage in each one of those units as well, but for purposes of this, it'll be a residential development of those 10 units. Proposed septic systems will be installed in those 3 dotted areas in that area, likely central septic design. So that just frames up the overall request. And of course, there is no public road that's being proposed inside this plat. That'll be just private roads or private drives as part of this. This was heard at our April 30th Planning Commission meeting. It did get unanimous a recommendation for approval from the commission. It's in unorganized, so there was no township comment. MnDOT provided a comment in April. That was published with some of their insight on what they would like to see. Crow County Highway Department, of course, provided their comments for all to see and for the board to consider. No comments were received from the DNR or any lake associations. We did receive 3 comments after the publication and were provided to the Board of Adjustments. Those were unsupportive in nature. And of course, the board considered all of those comments at the time of the meeting. There were, all of the potential conditions were taken up and approved, recommended for approval by the Planning Commission as well. So there was 6 conditions that were attached to this that you'll see in your packet. I do know that the Planning Commission had some concerns about the septic system that it was proposed as part of the plat. The proposal was to have holding tanks for each one of those 10 residential units in the Shoreland District. And so there was some concern there. While not conditioned by the board, subsequent to, not conditioned by the Planning Commission, subsequent to the meeting, the developer has, because of the feedback from the Planning Commission, has decided to go ahead and implement a change from holding tanks to a type 1 septic system because of those concerns. And so I have an additional condition that, I don't know, Therese or whoever is there wants to capture the language of this potential condition, since I don't have it in front of you. And that is that a type 1 septic system, which is your traditional tank plus drain field rather than just a holding tank. Type 1 system meeting all the requirements of the land use ordinance must be designed, approved, and installed as a condition of the development of residential lots 1 through 10 located in the Shoreland District. The developer is well aware of this. So is Paul Herkenhoff, the agent. That's what they intend to do. And this isn't sort of any sort of last minute change that I'm presenting for you. And I would ask the board to consider adding that condition so that we can ensure that, that just adequate protection of water quality and development of that residential development occurs. With that, I don't have anything else unless you had any questions.
Any questions from the county board?
Yeah, Mr.
Commissioner
Chair.
Brecken.
Jake, is there any landscaping plans for along the Highway 371 to the east?
When you say landscaping plans, are you talking about for an access entryway or a new access or anything like that?
Yeah, I think some kind of
landscaping plans?
some kind of screening that might be along there, or to buffer that just a little bit.
So there is, to my knowledge and understanding, adjacent to Highway 371, there would be no screening from the highway. Technically would not be required to, because it's not abutting a adjacent residential use. The zoning to the north, east, and southeast is all commercial zoning. There is some residential zoning to the west, and of course there's the residential part of that plat to the southwest, but not to the east. Does that help answer your question?
Yes.
Any other questions from the county board on the preliminary plat of Lakeview Condo Storage? Does Paul Herkenhoff want to weigh in if he's on there? If you can hear me, Paul, if you want to weigh in, you certainly can.
Paul, if you're there, you need to unmute your mic. He's right here, and his mic is muted.
Okay. Any further questions?
Huh? I can't unmute him. He has to unmute himself.
Is there a motion to approve or disapprove the 7.3?
Also move.
Move approval?
Move approval.
Move, Commissioner Brecken, is that a move approval with the addition that Jake talked about?
For
with
the septic, yes.
Okay, that's with the addition. Commissioner Franzine seconds, and she's okay with the addition. Any further questions? Okay, so we've got a motion for the preliminary plat of Lakeview Condo Storage with an addition from from Jake. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. Next is, I guess we're moving on to waiver appeal 7.4, Cragen's penalty waiver appeal. Sam Bedard.
Good morning, Chair, Board. Yep, so we have several appeals for our penalty tax
Unknown
waiver.
participant is now exiting.
The first on the list is Cragen's. They applied for a waiver on 18 parcels. These were all bare land parcels. A good chunk of them were out to the west of the county, north of County Road 77. And then there were a handful in Baxter, kind of surrounding the Holiday Inn Express. None of them were improved with operating businesses. So we did not believe it met the criteria set by the board, and they were denied.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Franzine.
Sam, before we even start this, could you tell us what the criteria is, and is it the same for all of the parcels?
Yep, so the criteria we were using were properties that were, or parcels that, businesses that were listed in that executive order, I believe it was 20-04. Those included restaurants, salons, fitness centers, golf courses, but then he reopened golf courses, sporting locations, and then also properties that were homesteaded and the primary wage earner was laid off from work due to the COVID pandemic.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Brecken.
If I can, Sam, how much have we allocated already for letting people to go, pay for in July? You know?
Yeah, I had that spreadsheet up. Let me call it back up quick.
Thought it was in a neighborhood somewhere of about 60. wasn't it?
60 people applied. I was wondering how much we've actually, what the
You mean-
tax dollar
you mean
amount would be.
money-wise?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we approved, between approvals and partial approvals, and the partial approvals included, maybe they had a bar, restaurant on the main level, apartments upstairs. The bar restaurant was approved, the restaurants were not, the apartments were not. Between partial approval and full approval, we approved 215 and 143, so $358,674.
Sam, do you know how many parcels that was? Or property owners?
It was 33 fully approved applicants, 22 partially approved applicants. Some applicants applied on multiple parcels. I don't have the complete parcel count. Total, we had 93 requests prior to the deadline of April 30th you gave us. After April 30th, we've had 10 additional requests that I'll discuss a little later, for a total of 103 requests.
I would just say that, I was going to save this comment for later on, but this is probably an appropriate time to say it. I don't think we really realize, if you watch the weekend news, the United States Secretary of the Treasury said if we don't open this country up, we're going to do damage to our economy that cannot be fixed. And I don't know your friend, I don't know if you saw your friend Mark Ronai's YouTube video about the resort up there. Employs about 330 people. Only 30 people are working there right now, so 300 people are not working. He appealed in his video that I watched last night for some kind of a tax relief, either sales tax or property tax. I'm telling you what, folks, there's a lot of businesses that are struggling or not going to make it. And this state has got to open up. I think some of our political leaders need to start speaking up about what the governor's doing, and because I'll tell you what, there isn't going to be any economy left if we don't get this opened up. And that's why I think it's important that this county open up so that our customers, the taxpayers who are paying our wages, can come in here and do business. And so, so that we can show them. I went to Walmart to get groceries the other day. The place is completely packed. The workers that are working there, they're working, So anyway, enough said on that. I'll probably have more comments to say, but.
Well, Mr. Chair, the thought that is hitting me, and I'm going along with the same thoughts you are, is that, maybe we look at these businesses, but when they applied for this, they're feeling stress. They're struggling. They wouldn't be asking for this, delay in, because they're still going to pay their taxes.
Correct.
We're just asking for delay so they can get open and get some cash flow going. And there's a variety of people here with different needs. My initial thought would be, and maybe Sam, you could tell me, how much are we talking in deferring these payments till July?
For the properties that have appealed,
Yes.
or just for Craigan's?
No, for all of them.
All of them on the rest of them on the
For
list.
the 7 or so appeals we have in front of you, it appears to be, well, there was one late appeal that didn't make it on the agenda, so I was going to discuss that with you as well. Including that late appeal, it is $77,606.
That is the total of all the appeals that are on our list, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Commissioner Brecken.
Well, my thought is that, and I know that this creates, I hate to say, some people maybe would have applied that haven't. But my initial thought would be, as I've thought more about this, is that these people are asking for help. And if we can make our payrolls and, cover that, my thought would be taking all of these, put them together in one motion and support their requests.
Commissioner Barrows.
Mr. Chair, I respectfully disagree with that. I believe that we set the rules for the game initially, and I think at this point that we have to follow it. I think to your point, Commissioner Brecken, that there would be others that would have applied had we had a different set of rules, and I don't think it's fair to that group to now change the rules to accommodate this group. That would be my position.
Commissioner Hoag.
Sam, are you able to tell us what percentage of Craigan's business was impacted by the governor's order to shut down?
All of it.
I mean, were they able to operate at all?
So in their appeal, they're saying they're expecting revenue in 2020 to be down over 45%. And that their spring group business lost $2 million in revenue. But this is not the resort. Again, this is some bare land parcels that are surrounding the Holiday Inn Express and some bare land parcels in First Assessment, just north of Pine Beach Road.
But it may not be the,
A little closer.
it may not be the resort directly, but it's the revenue from the resort that pays these taxes. So
Correct.
I'm a little concerned that again, to Bill's point, we've basically got a resort that's shut down that is not able to pay their taxes regardless if it's the resort property itself or off-site. That still requires the revenue from the resort operating. So
That is true.
I would tend for, I think it was 9,000 something to again, maybe not in one motion pass these, but walk through them and see. I think there might be some that we could reconsider based on the actual operations and the impact of their business.
And just to point out the fact that these appeals, they still have to pay their property taxes, but we're just delaying it. Tell me when we're delaying it till?
July 15th. Mr. Chairman.
July 15th. So instead of paying it on May 15th, which is coming up, they can wait until July 15th. And then because of that, there's no penalty
Correct.
on that. So really, we're giving them a leeway of 2 months. Commissioner Brecken, did you want to make a motion?
I would like to ask a
Oh,
question.
Commissioner
first.
Franzine.
How is that going to impact our budget?
Mr. Chairman?
County Administrator.
Members, I believe it has an impact. I don't believe that this is near the scope of what we thought it could be. I was most concerned about the impact on our area school districts. I did send an email to them letting them know those that were approved and those that were under consideration for appeal. I heard back from one that said it was fine, that it wasn't going to impair them. I have not heard back from the other two. From our perspective, I don't think it is concerning at the level that you have in front of you. I don't think it impairs our financial situation in a material way. And so you could approve all of them from a finance perspective. I would suggest the only other consideration is, to Commissioner Barrow's point, who else might have applied if you would have approved. That's it.
And then if Sam said that it was about $77,000 on the list here. So if you think about it, if either the township or the city or the school district and then the county, so I look at it as a third, and a third. So if it's 77,000, that's probably about $25,000 of money that the county wouldn't receive for the period of 2 months. I don't think $25,000, which is a lot of money, but that's not going to affect this operation for 2 months.
So, Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Barrows?
if I might, I would like to know about the one that came in late, because that's, in my opinion, a more egregious one to consider versus all of them together, because they didn't meet the timeline. So could I hear a little more information on that one?
On the one that came in, the appeal that came late?
Yes.
Yep, it is a Robert Johnson. He owns several properties in Nisswa, the Main Street Ale House, the post office, a couple retail stores that I believe he rents them out. I'm not sure if he operates any of them personally. He applied on 3 of his 5 properties. He did not apply on the post office or the chiropractor, but the two retail stores and the ale house he applied on. We approved the ale house because it's a restaurant and it met the criteria, but we did not approve the 2 retail stores. And he did not appeal directly to us. We got an email from him later after we had asked for a May 6th deadline for people to appeal their original denial. And we just heard about his concerns a day or 2 ago, so he did not make it on the agenda. But he was approved on the Main Street Ale House, not the two retail stores. They're right on Main Street in Nisswa. They're all right in a row.
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Commissioner Barrows?
So to follow up, why did he not meet that timeline?
I missed, the audio is kind of cutting in and out. I missed that, if that was a question for me.
Can you clarify better why he missed the appeal deadline?
He never appealed directly to us. It was an email that I think Gary received the other day that he had concerns about his denial. Most of our denials went to Melanie Flaws in our department. She's the one who sent out the appeals and the denials. And with every denial, she indicated that you could appeal this denial. Please have an email to us by May 6th, formally appealing your denial.
County Administrator?
Mr. Chairman, Sam, this particular one that you're describing, they applied for the waiver on time. they did not apply for the appeal on time, correct?
I'm sorry, the audio here is cutting in and out. I did not catch that question.
Okay, so this particular one, they applied for the appeal on time, but they did not apply for the waiver on time. Is that correct?
The waiver was timely. The waiver request was timely. The appeal of the denial was not timely.
Thank you. And
Was
in
that the
addition,
question?
yes, that was the question, so thank you. Another question. Were there applications that came in after the deadline for the appeal? I'm sorry, not for the appeal, but for the original relief?
The audio's cutting really in and out really bad right now. I'm gonna try something quick. Let's
You need to get closer to the source.
Yeah, we had the, we were projecting up on the screen here in the Oak Room, and we had the audio coming in over the speakers. We're switching straight just to the laptop and turned off our video to see if that helps with the lag time.
So Sam, my question then is, this particular one, they missed the deadline on the appeal. Do we have other applications that missed the deadline on their original application?
Yes, we do.
And how many of those do you
We have a
have?
total of, we have 10 applicants who did not meet the April 30th deadline.
And what's there were 10 applications. Do you have the amount of those applications in front of you?
Looks like I missed getting the amount on these.
Okay, well, if you could, just even ballpark estimate, Mr. Chairman, my point was, I want to make sure that you have, here are the appeals that were submitted on time. You have an appeal that was late. You also have applications that were late. And I just want you to know the waterfront.
And if I can jump in there, while you're considering all that, commissioners, what if we get one tomorrow? What if we get one a week from now, 2 weeks from now? How would you like us to handle those? We would like some direction on that.
So
Why do you have to always put us in a tough
looking
position
at-
here?
Because if we don't follow the rules,
No, I
we're
know
putting
that,
them
I
in a
know
tough
that.
position.
That was me being funny, thinking I'm funny.
I'm gonna ballpark that we are, this is a really rough ballpark, somewhere just on these 10 applicants, somewhere in the $5 million of value range. At a 3% tax rate, that's probably about, what is that, about
150,000.
another $150,000 in taxes?
County Administrator.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, if you would like a suggestion, what I would suggest that you could consider would be to deal with the appeals that you have in front of you, also deal with the one appeal that came in late. I would encourage you at this point, as hard a decision as that is, to not consider the appeals that were filed late. It would be sort of akin to you paid your taxes late, and under normal circumstances, there's not exceptions to that rule. I know it's hard, and I don't know if that's something that you want to consider or not.
No.
But if you don't have an end date at some point, then how long do you want to let it go on?
Right. Well, we'll let the county board consider that. Thank you. Commissioner,
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think that what we need to deal with is what's in front of us and those
Correct.
requests. So I think that that's what we do. If you're comfortable, I would be willing to make a motion that the request from 7.4 to 7.11 to include the Mr. Johnson that came in late, that we would approve their appeals for payment of taxes July 15th.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Is there a second?
When you say appeal,
You gotta have a second.
oh, I will second then.
Okay,
for
now discussion. Commissioner Hoag.
Appeal as in,
Well, we're accepting their appeal that we would allow them to pay their taxes in July 15th.
for that 60-odd thousand or whatever.
Correct.
77,000.
Oh, with that late, that's with that Johnson appeal?
We'd have to ask Sam on that.
But if we're,
77 included Johnson.
and why would we include him and not the others?
Only because it came in late and they had brought it up. I mean, we can take that off if we have to, if that would make it.
He did apply for the initial waiver before April 30th, so he met the initial application deadline. So he is a little bit different than those other 10 I mentioned, where I'm ballparking about 150,000 in taxes, because he did get his initial application in prior to April 30th.
Does that make sense, Commissioner Hoag?
I think so, yeah.
The other ones didn't get the initial application in on time. This Johnson fella, he did get the application in on time, but when he was denied, he didn't get the appeal in on time.
Okay. And maybe just another quick point. Approving all of these in one swoop, are there any that just truly do not meet the criteria that was laid forward? I mean, I could see, the Cragen issue, for example, is basically his business was shut down completely, allowing no revenue to pay tax on whatever parcel. But are there some that just are outside of the realm of what this was intended for?
Would you like just a really brief synopsis of what each one is? Okay, so the next one is Jan Johnson. She owns 13 rental properties, residential rental properties. She says that's her only source of income. Rental properties were not included in the order, but she says her income is greatly affected because she cannot evict right now, and there are numerous tenants who are not paying their rent on time.
And
it's her only source of income.
Sam, if you would stop, can you stop right there? So,
Yep.
with the governor's, either you or the county administrator can help me, I think with the governor's executive order, you couldn't evict anybody, and if they weren't paying their rent, they don't have to pay their rent because you can't evict them. So
Correct.
apparently this lady is losing her income. Correct, okay.
Correct.
Go ahead with the rest.
Yep, Jody Niece Knife, she owns a resort up on the Whitefish chain. Usually deposits for the summer season are what they use to pay their first half. Their bookings are way down, so they don't have the deposits. They're expecting their income to be down this year. Kramer, he has a retail store in Cross Lake that he has closed, but it was not the type of retail store that was listed in Executive Order 20-04. So he's applying on both his retail store and his homestead. Lures, they own Bridge of Harmony. Once again, it's not the type of retail that was listed in Order 20-04. It was denied. They are also applying on their homestead and 2 seasonal properties. Party World was not ordered closed, but most of their spring and a lot of their summer bookings got canceled, so their revenue is way down. The next one is Crosswoods Golf Course. That's the Michael Stone. It's Crosswoods Golf Courses. Golf courses were allowed to reopen on April 18th, but he's saying his revenue is still way down. And then the final one is similar to that Jan Johnson. They have 6 residential rental properties. That's their only source of income. They're applying up to 6 residential rentals and their homestead. Their rent is way down because they can't evict and some of their tenants aren't paying rent.
And just for some clarity, take like the golf course, you know, we have many golf courses. We've had others that applied that, we did deny the golf course portion. We'll take like Rutgers, for example. So this would be, well, different than what we did with Rutgers, but Rutgers didn't make an appeal. They were happy or, you know, content with, they got a partial improvement. Where, you know, another golf course, we would, if they didn't have a clubhouse or a restaurant, you know, the golf course would have been denied by us. We've explained it. They have chosen just not to appeal. Not saying it's, I'm just giving you perspective. So this one, you know, when you, if it's the blanket appeal, that golf course will get it. You'll have other ones that don't get it. It's going to cause some confusion, but just as a point of perspective.
Okay, thank you. We got a motion and a second to approve 7.4 to 7.11. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Motion passes. County Sheriff. County Sheriff, can you hear me? Unmute yourself.
Scott, you have to unmute yourself, the little bar
All
in
right,
the
you
middle.
should be able to,
Oh,
I'm
There we
hoping
go.
you can hear me. All right, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, good morning. Just a brief update, our Emergency Operations Center, we have looked at kind of revamping our staffing for that. We do have the phone lines up and running, and our email is up and running, but we did roll back our staffing. John Bowen, as you know, is our Emergency Management Director, is heading that up. He is receiving all phone calls, all emails, but we have drawn back the other resources that we had there. It's an easy fix if and when, you know, we end up having other issues come up. We can certainly look at changing our dynamics minute to minute if needed. Other than that, I just wanted to pass on, I'm sure as most of you have, we're receiving a number of calls reference to the current restrictions for our businesses throughout the area. And as mentioned, you know, that temperance, or it seems like that the feeling is starting to reach towards the idea of people are more apt to lean towards wanting to open. We're still trying to, you know, heavily send out that message that there are members of our populations, you know, certain age categories and those with medical concerns that we have to continue to watch out for. So looking for some guidance coming hopefully this week from the governor with some final answers of where we're going to be. I think the unknowns is what is, well, it's what's driving me nuts, and I know it's concerning to a number of people. Any questions I would certainly entertain. Thank you.
Any questions for the county sheriff? No questions. Okay, thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Yep. Therese, is Don on here? He's not, okay. County Administrator.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, yesterday's SMT, there was quite a few different things that we covered, so I hope I don't bore you, but I'll go through the list. First off, we heard from John Bowen and Michelle Moritz in regards to their emergency response efforts. They talked about distributing additional PPE to local law enforcement, local fire departments, and corrections staff. So PPE is flowing better than what it used to be, and that's, I think, good news for all of our communities. In fact, we also got a couple of 55-gallon drums of disinfectant, and so they're going to try to put that into 1-gallon jugs and distribute those in the same manner. We are now beginning our FEMA reimbursement process. and will focus primarily on community services, the sheriff's office, and administrative services. Those are where we have incurred the majority of our expenses. And our concern is to make sure that clinics and hospitals are also included in that FEMA reimbursement process. And we believe that because this is such a widespread problem, that being in early will probably put you in a better position. And so we didn't want to wait too long before we started submitting for FEMA reimbursement. That is typically a very involved process of documentation, submission, answering questions that they may have. Oftentimes there's a sit-down meeting. The good news is we have quite a bit of experience doing this, as we have experienced many natural disasters over the course of time, and so we know the process pretty well. So we're going to begin that process right now. Our case count, you may have noticed, fluctuated over this weekend. It was 24 at one point and got adjusted back to 23. And what we found out was that one case was assigned, their permanent address was here, but they were not living here. And so there are a bunch of different reasons that could cause that. The most obvious one I think that you can conceive of would be if there's a student in another community. And so that one did get assigned to another county. So our count went back to 23. We have also begun doing some of our contact tracing training. Public Health is going to go through that training first, and so they're taking kind of a train-the-trainer model. Contact tracing, you may recall, is where we reach out to those who have a positive test result and try to make sure we understand who have they come into contact with. And you want those people that a positive test result has come into contact with to isolate and quarantine for the 14 days. The Minnesota Department of Health has notified us that they are requesting county support because they are not able to keep up. An example of that occurred during the training that Public Health went through just yesterday. They had a real call of a contact trace that they were using as part of the training. This particular person tested positive on April 30th, and the follow-up was being done on May 11th. By May 11th, they're almost through the 14 days themselves, let alone how many other people have they come into contact with during those 11 days. Fast response is critically important, and we have a good example of that in our community in that we had an outbreak at Teen Challenge that everybody is aware of. And they did a very effective job at contact tracing and doing isolation and quarantine, which limited that outbreak and contained it. So we're working on that.
Before you move on that, I got a question on that. So you said that the Minnesota Department of Health requested, are we required to do that, or by governor's executive order, or are we just volunteering to do it?
Mr. Chairman, we are not required to do so. It is typically considered to be a core responsibility of public health, but we're not required to.
Okay.
We are also working with area chambers of commerce. We are busy reviewing business plans that they have submitted voluntarily for our review and comment. We're not approving or disapproving business plans, and what those business plans are is safety plans around their preparedness efforts to get reopened. I don't know if this is an example of something we also don't need to do. We are working with our local businesses to try to help them establish safety plans so that all of their customers will feel safe coming back. I think that there are folks that are out there in the community that are scared, right, wrong, or indifferent, and trying to get as many business customers back and with safety protocols. So we're voluntarily helping our business community to do that. We, as of yesterday, had reviewed 8 plans. The requests for plans went out late last week, and so we have already reviewed 8 plans so far. Some gyms, salons, resorts, one of the larger resorts, in fact. And that is partly the response to, I think, Commissioner Coring, what you were talking about, and the sheriff was talking about. I almost hear about other communities that are ready for rebellion. And to just open the door, the concern there is just opening the door will not bring back your customers who are afraid. And so you might have 30% of your customer base that doesn't come back. So I understand, I get it, why a business is very frustrated and wants to reopen because of the economic collapse. That's a very legitimate point of view. I'm also trying to deal with those who are scared that they're going to contract the virus. And how do we figure out how to do commerce with safety? And that's the effort that we're trying to engage in reviewing those business plans. And it is to show people that there is a different way to do it. There is a better way to do it, other than just to have a rebellion. Our testing numbers for Crow Wing County continue to go up, and what we have some difficulty, though, we know they're going up because of our conversations with area hospitals. But we do not get data from the state that tells us county by county how many tests are being done. And so we're getting better statewide numbers. I know we're getting more tests done within Crow Wing County. That's good. Interestingly, there are a lot of people who get a COVID test who are also testing negative for COVID. What that tells us is there continues to be other illnesses that are present in our community. Influenza A was a particularly difficult season this year. And so we know that there are other illnesses present when we get a negative test result for COVID. There are some newer symptoms that are coming to light, and we're hearing more about from the CDC and from MDH. So wanted to tell you a little bit about those. Bright red or purple toes and fingers. It would be indicating a lack of oxygen to your extremities. That's a new symptom that they've identified. Lack of taste and smell. We've heard about that some places, but just to talk about that is new. And then they're talking about more systemic kinds of impacts, and those kinds of impacts are happening with younger people as well. Those systemic issues would be things like kidney issues, kidneys shutting down or becoming less fully functional, blood clotting. And that's due to inflammation issues in the blood vessels, and they're seeing that even in some children. We had a 5-year-old that passed due to those kinds of blood inflammation issues. That can lead to heart inflammation as well. And so they're starting to see things that go beyond just what you would expect for a respiratory illness. And I think there's just a ton of things we really don't know yet, and the things we don't know probably greatly outweighs the things that we do. Just trying to keep you in the loop of what I'm hearing and what kind of guidance we're seeing. So that's what we covered with with John and with Michelle. We also heard from Nick Milkey, a budget update. You're getting the regular budget updates as well. So we reviewed that budget report, and for us, I don't know if our expenses are the bigger concern or if declining revenues are the bigger concern. And so we certainly are paying attention to what's happening at the state. I think you guys have heard through the news, but the state's budget forecast had a significant swing from a very positive budget variance to a very negative budget variance. So they're now forecasting a $2.4 billion deficit at the state level. They're expecting about a 3 quarters worth of recession, 3 fiscal quarters worth of recession. The sales tax that they're estimating is down. They're estimating 11% down in sales tax collections. We're thinking for us it's probably going to be higher than that, maybe as high as 18%, because of our impacts in the tourism industry that, as we talked about with some of the resorts today, that is significantly down. And to put it into some perspective, during the Great Recession, when the state budget was 10 years ago, and so the state budget was smaller at that point in time, the budget deficit at that time was $4.5 billion. And so it was more significant. It was twice as high during the Great Recession. We don't know how long this is going to last. And so these numbers are all tentative, and they're based on, as I say, a 3 quarters worth of a recession. And so what partnership will the state be expecting from county government? Will we see our state aids impacted? Will we see county program aid impacted? We don't know yet. It's Tuesday. This is supposed to be the final week of the session, so God willing, we'll know by the end of the week, but we don't know right now. There are some, so in the interim, we're going to use our highway fund balance to do the road projects this year. We have the sales taxes that we have previously collected, and we are going to use that to help keep our local economy going and jobs flowing by doing what we committed to do in 2020. You guys approved that. We are seeing some increased costs in community services as we have about 500 new public assistance cases. That also does bring some additional state and federal revenues with it. And so that is kind of a mixed bag. Our jail revenues, we know, are going to be down a minimum of $250,000 already. There is the potential for some bright spots in the horizon with the Federal CARES Act. 45% of what the state of Minnesota received is eligible to be passed through to local units of government. There is a Senate file coming that the run there showed that we would be eligible to receive about $4.6 million from the state pass-through. God knows what that's going to end up at. That would be a very helpful number for us, of course, but the state has a $2.4 billion deficit, and if they keep all of the Federal CARES Act money to themselves, it will not quite cover their own budget deficit. And so I don't know what's going to happen with that. There's some bright spots, but there's a lot of clouds too. So we'll see what happens with that, hopefully soon. Three things that I'm really watching that I would suggest that we need to pay close attention to, and one of them is what happens with our sales tax collection. And how long does that last? That's going to be really important for the 5-year transportation improvement plan and how well we can deliver on that plan and how well we can continue to deliver on it. What happens with state aid? Do we get more state aid as a result of the Federal CARES Act in the short term? Do we get less state aid, county program aid, or other state aids go down? Gas tax revenue certainly is going to be impacted, just like sales tax will. So for how long? So watching what happens with that fluctuating state aid is going to be really important for us. It's going to make 2021 budgeting, which we're going to begin fairly shortly here, very difficult to predict. Holy cow, we're going to have to make some educated guesses, and they're going to be wrong. It's a question of to what degree they're wrong. So that's a very nerve-wracking thing to contemplate at this point. And then the collection rate on property taxes. And we'll be watching what that collection rate is for the May 15th, and maybe even more importantly for us, what happens in November and what do things look like in our economy by then. And that will give us, I think, a good indication of maybe how long we're going to see this run. Our budget performance through April is pretty good, and so that includes, both March's and April's expenses, which is when we have incurred most of our COVID-related expenses. So I'm happy about that. We're at about 110% on revenue, but a good chunk of that 10% over 100 is due to our tax forfeited land sale, and that highway drew down state aids as soon as they gave out the bids for the highway state aid eligible projects. So that brought that money in from the state, but we know that that money is going to go out. And so in both of those cases, that has more to do with the timing of when the revenue came in than it does in terms of superior budget performance. So in my mind, if you subtract those two out, we're right on budget with revenue, which is still good news. On the expense side, we're at 99.62% on budget. And so given that we have our COVID-related expenses in there already, that is also good news. And I think the move that you guys took on capital projects is going to turn out to have been a thank goodness we did that move as it relates to our 2020 budget. Talked a little bit about 2021 budget, and of course, we're going to have to approach that from a very austere point of view. Trying to hold down the line on our expense increases as much as we can, try to rebuild our fund balances as much as we can through the course of that process. And then the guesses that we're going to have to make are just, I don't know, that really makes me nervous. We also then moved on and talked about reopening plans, and Commissioner Coring, to your point, we are shooting for May 18th, and barring some unforeseen drastic circumstance, we are going to be doing our soft reopening on May 18th. We are going to be requiring that all of our staff wear masks, and so you'll see that I have mine readily available if we're moving around from our workstations, that we're expected to wear masks. Anytime that we are going to have some contact with the public, we're going to be expecting that our staff wear masks. That is as much to protect, and maybe even more, to protect our customers than it is to provide protection for ourselves. The support staff will be rolling, a lot of that will be rolling back in this week. The courts, they are going, we are still going to need to put up some limited plexiglass for them. Facilities walked through that with them this past week. And then they're going to be trying to reopen with no more than 5 cases per courtroom per hour. And doing sanitation in between then, it remains to be seen if that pace, if they can keep up that pace. You may understand that we're responsible to provide the facility, but they're responsible to do the operations, and so the disinfecting work will need to be done by the state's court administration staff. I think it remains to be seen how well that's going to work for them. In the historic courthouse, we have filing for offices that is going to be coming up in the not very distant future. And so, as I understand it, we'll certainly do the in-person filing like we normally would, but we will also have an option. I understand that, well, at least the potential for an option for people to file electronically. The issue there is paying the filing fee, and right now we don't know how we will do that, but we understand that that option will be open for folks to make it easier if they want. At the Highway Department, and I'm just reviewing with you what I know to be changes from what you've already heard at the last board meeting. The Highway Department has decided that vendor entry will be by appointment only. They will allow customer entry, but vendor entry, they want to know when they're coming so that they can be properly prepared for them. In HR, we're talking about the hiring time. Under normal circumstances, we have a managing for results measure about how quickly we can do replacement hires, and you're trying to drive that number down. And because of how everything has been flipped on its head, we're having some discussions about whether or not we don't want to drive that number up, because it would result in a little bit more open position savings. And so we are looking at different cost reduction strategies. We talked about early retirement. The problem with early retirement is, you may recall when we did that during the Great Recession, the SMT member had to commit that we weren't going to fill that job for 2 years. And given how many years that we had very austere levies, we're in a different position than we were when the Great Recession started, where I think we had about 25 budgeted positions that weren't filled. And so we start this a little bit, more behind the 8 ball, but and that's why I don't think early retirement incentives are really going to get us very far. So that's what I have for an update from yesterday's SMT meeting. I would have typed it up and sent it to you, but since you were going to be here today, I thought I'd cover it this way. I'm happy to answer any questions about anything I covered or anything else related to county government.
Okay, a couple things from me. First, just sitting here thinking back to just the last motion that we made, I just want to let the county board members know that if you feel that I haven't made the right ruling, all you have to do is raise your hand and say division, and we'll raise hands, because it was a close vote, and I did decide that vote. I just want you to know that. You have that option. Just letting you know that. I just want to let the county board too know that this emergency declaration that we have been under, I'm not supporting the extension of that. We're not looking at that today, but the county administrator did talk to me about extending that, and I told him that I am not in favor of that. I don't see any need to do that anymore, and I feel that the county board has relinquished too much authority on that declaration, and I'm just not going to support that anymore. I think there's just too many sheep that are just following along and thinking that they're supposed to just go along with everything that state government or the governor is saying, and I don't agree with a lot of it. I've listened to his news conferences at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Now they're in the process of buying a building for $6.9 million to store bodies. That is, and it's like bodies are piling up. That's not the case. I've worked for funeral homes, and I know funeral homes in the cities, and that is not the case. I don't know where this is coming from. I keep hearing a lot of stories that a lot of people are being, they're dying, and the death certificate is saying COVID-19, and that probably is not the case. I can't prove it, but I'm hearing a lot of stories that I'm really troubled by. I'm going to, as chair, unless the county board wants to override me, I'm directing the county administrator to have the budget committee and the personnel committee going forward. Those meetings I want to be in this room, and I want them to be live streamed, just like the county board meeting and the committee of the whole. I want those live streamed. And when we do have a personnel committee meeting, when we're going to go into closed session, I want us to make sure we're doing it by the book. I want us to list the statute and the reason why we're going into closed session. I just think that this, if we're down in the administrative meeting room, I don't think we have this same capability up there. If we're doing the budget committee meeting here, I think a lot of the staff can do the Teams thing from this room. And then I just think that, a lot has changed since this, the public not being able to come here, and I still talk to a lot of people, and they're concerned that they're not privy to really what's going on. And with all due respect to Chelsea, Chelsea is the only one that's here that's reporting on what she's seeing happening. And this way, if it's streaming live, people can watch, or they can go back and they can see what was said. They can watch the raw decisions that we're making on their behalf, whether it be budget or personnel, committee of the whole, or even this meeting. So I'm going to direct you to do that from now forward. The next chair can change that, or if there's a motion that if the board doesn't want to go that direction, you can certainly override the chair, but as of right now, I'm going to direct you to have that happen. Okay. Good? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so any questions of the county administrator? You looked like you had a question.
No,
okay.
Okay. I'm good.
Any questions? Okay. Next is any additional business? I don't think we have any.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Therese.
The Land Services Director had asked that he could come back on and talk about the 10 late appeals, and he'd like the board to consider those. I guess he had some extra appeals that we kind of skipped over, and he was not back on the line, so he is.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
He is here, and Gary, if
Gary
you want to
Griffin.
unmute yourself, you're on.
You're on, Gary.
Okay, sorry, just wanted to make sure if you guys wanted to entertain or consider the 10 appeals that were actually after the April 30th deadline, if you wanted to act on those at all or consider them. You did do the ones that appealed our decision. These are ones that you maybe have some, they're the initial application. We have some suggestions, but maybe you would want to entertain a motion on all 10, or of course you don't have to do anything with them, and they would, in our estimation, be automatically denied if that's the case.
Any decision from the county board?
Mr. Chair, I think, Gary,
Reckon.
I think what you got to do with that is that you're going to have to do some detail on that, present it to us so we know what we're looking at, and that's why we only made the motion today in regards to what was on our agenda. we're going to have to decide or deal with these, I think, on a one-to-one basis as we go forward, or with your recommendation. But I think until we have the opportunity to review the
The only thing is Commissioner Brecken, we're going to have to review those today because the 15th of May is just a few days away, and their taxes will need to be paid.
Yep. But it's only if he's prepared to share those with us without us seeing who they are and what their situations are.
Mr. Chair.
What's the pleasure of the county, Commissioner
If
Barrows?
I might, the bigger concern is that we're potentially making an exception for this group. So then what prevents another group to come forward and say, I want the same consideration? And I think that if we go down this road, that's a slippery slope at this point, so close to the 15th of May, to start saying that that's okay. I think we would create a monster for ourselves.
I just think that these are, I'm not going to use the word unprecedented times because I'm sick of everybody saying that, but these are craziness times, I think, and people are, Tim Hool is right, people are scared. I'm running into people that are scared, but there's a lot of people that are getting damn mad, and I'm damn mad. You know, and I'm trying not to go off the rails today. If it would have been this weekend, I would have really been off the rails. But I see the compassion in Bill Brecken. These people that have come forward, obviously, they foresee a hardship in their mind, and they feel like they need an extension for 2 months. A lot of other people have come in and paid their taxes because either they can or they, you know, so I don't know. I mean, I leave it up to the board. It's your call, Commissioner Barrows.
Mr. Chair, to clarify, I don't want my position to not be compassionate. I understand the struggles and the problems that these businesses and individuals have out there. However, we were compassionate when we set the original rules and guidelines for this process. And I think that we have to continue with that. Did we do it perfectly? Perhaps not. But I think we did the best job we could at the moment, and I think that it's important that we continue to enforce what we originally put in. I'm as compassionate as anybody. But I do think that there is a timeline that we have to adhere to.
Well, I don't think there's going to be anybody else, or there might be some coming after this, but Gary's asking about the 10 that he has right now. Anybody do you want to go through those, or what's the pleasure of the board?
So, Mr. Chair, if I might,
Commissioner Barrows?
and Administrator, if you want to correct me, what if somebody can't pay on the 15th, and then they come and say, well, I want consideration similar to the 10 that we might consider now? Are we going to say yes or no to them, or say yes to them? It's okay, you can have until July 15th to pay.
Well, we've got the authority to do that.
We certainly do. But is that fair to everybody else out there?
Well, you want to talk about a fairness deal. I've got in my area, I'm kind of going off the rails a little bit here. But, okay, so now I got somebody complaining about a business over in my district. And apparently, these people have a camper that's supposedly not within the rules of our ordinance. So I went over there and I talked to him and I took some pictures, and I think Jake's going to go out there. And so as I looked, this little stream there, here's this camper, supposed to be 100 feet away from the stream. As I look across the stream on the other side, I can see 4 more campers on the other side. So I talked to Gary about this yesterday. As a matter of fairness, Now, when we go out there to tell this guy, hey, you got to get that camper out of there, now we got to go around, and we got to go around there to every single one of them and say, hey, you've only got 14 days, and you've got to get a permit, and it's got to be 100 feet away. So, I don't know. I just, I don't know. I'm not happy about that. That's a larger story anyway, but, and that's, I want to talk to you, Gary, after we make a decision on this about the ordinance and where we're at with that. So, if there's no motion, I guess, Gary, that's what the board has decided, not to do anything on it. If there's no motion, is there a motion? Nope, no motion, Gary, so we're not going to take any action on that. Gary, as long as you're on there, just one more question. Where are we at with the ordinance? I mean, I know that have we taken a public comment yet? I know the Planning Commission has vetted it, Scott has vetted it. Just give me a rundown.
Yeah, we are close to opening it up for public comment. I believe Jake had sent an email asking for any other additional comments from the board or you guys yourselves. We have Scott Anderson almost complete with his review. And from all of those edits, if you will, we would be sending out for a 30-day public comment. Still looking at to have a finalized draft of the revisions to the ordinance in front of you probably in August.
Okay. I can tell you after our conversation yesterday, I'm going to be adamant to oppose the whole thing. If we, this notion that if you have a camper, your camper, and you park it in your driveway, if it's there for more than 14 days, you have to have a permit? That's craziness.
Well, not if it's storage only. I mean, if it's just yours and you're not using it to let people come and recreate out of it, it's kind of, it gets a little in the weeds, Mr. Chair, but at the end of the day, anybody can have a camper on their property as long as you're going somewhere else to use it. If it's there stationed and in use for more than 14 days, it would require a permit, and that's in our current ordinance.
Well, I think we need to have a conversation about that, because if somebody has relation that comes up for, several weekends and during the summer, and then all of a sudden they're not in compliance, I just, yeah, anyway. Well, I think we need to have a discussion about that, but any other business to come before the council?
Just real quick,
Yes, Gary.
if I can, just so the board, I know I'm beating a dead horse, any applicants that come to us for waiver of penalty currently, our direction is we will just have them as denied, or we're just maybe not going to accept them. That the program as we know it right now has run its course. That's where I'm at today. Just in case anybody has any problem with that, let me know.
Okay. And before you leave, Gary, that makes me think of something else, Okay, so, Bill, not to put you on the spot, but you know how I love to put you on the spot, yeah. Commissioner Brecken. So, in watching Mark Ronai's video last night on YouTube, it was almost like an impassioned plea, which I can understand. I mean, they have 330 employees, and only 30 of them are working because there's the bookings and on and on and on. And he was asking for some kind of relief, at least just for a couple of months. My question is as we think about these that we're talking about right now, what happens if Mark is able to come in here and ask for some relief? What are we going to do? You don't have to comment on that. It's just that, that could happen. I mean, if we lose some of these businesses, BIR or North Central Speedway, or some of these businesses start to falter, this is going to have a dramatic effect on the economy of Crow Wing County. Huge.
No question, Mr. Chair. And, you know, my concern gets to be is that, you know, we did set the rules up in the beginning for this, and we thought, well, this makes sense, but the game's been changing on us daily. And what we see happening, and I've been talking to even some of our local bankers, they're concerned, yes, some people are going to come out of this and may not be able to open. But if we don't get this thing, it's going to take a while for the economy to ramp back up. It's going to be third and fourth quarter. That's very concerning. And so now, fortunately, our resorts really have until, I think, May 31st for that payment. So, I mean, there's a little extra time in there. But if we just don't get, again, the economy up, you know, businesses back open in a safe way, we have to do that. I think our relationship both with the chamber and we're working with the local hospitals to be able to make this a safe effort, we just really have to get behind this. And the rules of the game have changed.
Right.
And we just have to be ready to start adapting to it. And we're going to make some decisions that are going to be tough, some, you know, but we don't want to pick winners and losers. We just want to do the best we can with what we're faced with each day.
Yep. And one other thing for Commissioner Barrows, I know one thing, we've got to get our barbers back to work, because if, God rest my dad's soul, but if he was here and he saw this long hair that I have on me, he'd start calling me a hippie. He didn't like long hair, so, and yours is getting long too, so we both need a haircut.
Hopefully Monday.
Huh?
Hopefully they'll open them
Hopefully
up Monday.
yeah. Okay, no other business to come before the county board. Motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Barrows,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Franzine to adjourn the county board meeting for the day. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.